I started in Escrima back in 1983, and how I got involved is I was training Goju under Sensei Rodney Hu in Stockton, and I worked at this Safeway store on Charter Way in Stockton, and I met this man that he seemed to carry himself in a sort of a very confident but yet very humble way. And I'd come to him and I asked him, I said, do you do any training or any type of martial arts? And he told me he didn't. He just was a little indignant with me and he just said, no, he didn't. His name was Mariano Bermudez. And I told him, okay, no problem. But 2 weeks later, he came up to me and he asked me, he said, why did you ask? And so I explained to him why. And he told me, he says, well, I do. And I said, really? I said, what are you training? And he told me Escrima. And I never heard of that. I didn't even know what it was. But he told me who he trained under, and he told me that he was an advanced instructor under Angel Cabalas, Grandmaster Angel Cabalas. And he said that he was teaching, and I go, teaching? And he said, yeah, and it just piqued my interest. And I said, so would you be interested in me at least coming and watching or sitting or maybe even taking it from you? Would you be willing to teach me? And he told me no. He sort of like dangled the carrot out in front of me, and he said no. But he came back later, and he said, come to my house. I got a bunch of rules that if you obey every single one of these rules, then I'll take you on as a student. So I went to his house, and he basically grilled me for 3 hours. And any little thing that I said that he didn't like, any question that I might have asked that he feels that I questioned him, he was going to cut it. You're not going to be my student. But I guess I must have done pretty well because I stayed with him for a period of time. And he got me to number 8. And he says, I can take you as far as I can take you. I need to introduce you, as he put it, I need to introduce you to the old man. And so him and Carlito, a good friend of mine, took me to meet Angel Cabales. And what was a funny thing is he only lived 2.5 blocks from me. Literally, walked down 2 blocks, half over, and there it was. And I got to meet him and went into his apartment. They told, Mariano had told him, sir, this is what I've been doing with him, and he'd like to learn. I'd see if he'd like to come over here. And so I brought him to meet you. And so he said, okay. So he talked to me for a little bit and asked me how far I went and, how I liked it and stuff. And I said I did. So he told the 2 guys, he said, okay, boys, go ahead and leave. And I sat there and he says, go ahead, you guys leave. Come back in a bit. And so he left. And he told me, he says, I just want to see what you got, what you do. And I was a little confident because I felt that I had learned quite a bit in a short period of time. So I said, okay. So he got me a stick, and he had a stick, and he said, let's get up. So we got up right in the middle of his little apartment, and he started throwing numbers to me. So he took me all the way to number 8 because that's as far as I got, and I thought I did really good. And so he says, okay, let's sit down. So he sat down, and he looked at me. He says, okay. And he goes, well, I said, well, how did I do, sir? And I expected a really, oh, you did good. I expected something. And he goes, you look like crap. And my whole face, I could feel heat coming out of my neck. I was embarrassed. And he goes, no, it's not that bad. He said, but there's a lot that I can do to make you better. He says, if you're interested in being my private student, I'll do it. And I said, sir, that would be great. And so, like they say, the rest is history. And I got my master's degree, my advanced instructors, and then my master's degree from him. And I tell you, the time that I spent with Grandmaster Angel Cabalas is time that you can't get back. It was a beautiful time. It was a great time. It was a hard time. I learned some tough lessons. And at the time of my life, things were really tough. And he actually would sit me down and talk with me and try to give me like fatherly advice. And because I respected him so much, I listened. I really listened. And it actually helped me to curtail a little bit of the things that I was doing out there in the streets and sort of not being the kind of man or father, husband that I should have been. And he did help me. He really did help me a lot. But what happened is he asked me and some other advanced instructors if I would be interested in helping him open his school again. And so I was like all for it, absolutely. And so I helped him, I should say we, because there's a bunch of us that went on Harding Way, Gong Lee's restaurant. They had a little place right next to it, a small little parking lot, and then there was like a banquet hall. And it was a dojo, it was a school. And so we helped him open up there, and things happen, things go on, as it goes. But inside of me, I felt that there was more to this. And I wanted to get better, because I think anytime you do anything and you want to try to excel at it or be the best you can be, you need to go to different venues to learn other way, to build, And I always believed in that. I didn't believe in just pigeonholing and saying, okay, this is the number one, because if it was, it would be a line outside the door because there'd be nothing else. But I ended up going and I went to the Bahalna Club, and at that time, it was really bad blood between the two schools. Both sides of the guys were great guys. It's just the instructors they couldn't see eye to eye, and it got pretty bad. Well, the students were taught that, and so they didn't see eye to eye, even though really in reality they didn't even know why. But they allowed me to come in. At first they thought I was a spy, and they didn't want me to come in. But Grandmaster Leo Giron had me sit next to him for 2 weeks, every class, until he finally felt confident. And then one day he said, okay, boys, take them to the floor, play. And I was like, whoa, really? And he said, yeah. In fact, he told me, he said, take my clipboard, and these will be the numbers that you're going to work on. These are your blocks. And I said, okay, after class, I'll give that back to you. And he said, nope, it's yours. And I still have that today. And I got a graduate diploma from him, which is a great honor coming from him. And then I ended up moving from Stockton, coming to Tracy, and then I was teaching, and then again, I started getting a little itch, and I wanted to learn more. I wanted to be better again. So through different avenues, I found out about a gentleman named Maestro Sunny Umpad, who not only allowed me to come in and for me to be like his private student as well. He became a good friend, and we shared a lot of stories, a lot of laughs, tears, and I spent 6 years with him, and off and on. And another one, again, a tremendous man that opened up his door like I was family. And I went, and we trained, and he taught me, and he's the one that truly changed my Escrima, and it evolved into what it's becoming, not what it has become, but what it is becoming. And I give a lot of credit to where I stand now to Angel Leo for giving me that base, the inside and the outside base. But I really put a lot of credit to Sunny, because he helped me bring it all together and how to meld it around this way, this way, this way, this way. Every angle he had covered, and it was solid. And so I was able to meld some of that with my basics, and it's becoming what we're doing now. And in fact, it actually opened up a door to where the club that's in the Visayan Escrima Club in Oakland, our schools have melded together, and we're working our systems together, which is just some incredible materials coming out of that. And then the last gentleman that I've trained with, that I'm still training with, I just haven't had a chance to get down there, is Grandmaster Ramiro Estelia. This is a man that epitomizes what martial arts, not just Escrima, I'm talking martial arts end to end. When you first start, it's for self-defense. It's because you love your family enough that you choose to work hard and learn your art the best you can so you can protect them. And this is something that he poured into me. The art of the barons, he would say, it's Cabalas. And he showed me that long, big stick and how to pound you, and move hard with that stick. But the way he did it with such humility and love was something that I'll never forget. So this is sort of my introduction into Escrima. I've been so blessed. I mean, the Lord truly blessed me with some of the greats of Escrima. And I had a chance to spend good quality time. Not just a seminar, not just a weekend, but I'm talking within years and months of spending with these gentlemen. And I'm really blessed that I was able to do that. You know, I'd like to share a story, or some stories, sort of combined, about my time with Grandmaster Angel Cabalas. The way he taught, at least the way he taught me, because when I came to him, I had some experience with, hitting and kicking and fighting and angling and moving. He took that and he didn't change his Escrima to mold me. What he did is he actually helped mold me to fit the Escrima, but then he changed it up for me so it would work for my size, my weight, my movement. And he showed me, when he would work with me and he would show me the techniques and the style, he would tell me, you're one of the rare ones that have the speed and you have the strength, the power. He said, so I want to utilize that, but I want to show you how to cut corners and go A to B. He said, because there are some guys that are really, really quick, and they'll get inside of you. They're just too fast. He said, but if you know how to go A to B, you will be as quick as them, if not quicker. And so when he would work with me and he'd show me techniques and he would show me movement, especially when I was going for my master's degree with him, he worked me extremely hard on angling, moving, and power. How to power over the top, how to power underneath, and yet the speed to be able to pull out and finesse somebody. Because he says there's going to be guys that are going to be stronger than you. And he said, and they're going to come down very hard on you. He says, so learn how to finesse, learn how to move. That's why we sort of have a block. Our cross block is sort of like our signature cross block. Every one of my students since the 90s up until now all have basically the same cross block, because this is the way that Angel showed me, and he gave me the reasons why. But the one thing that I think I really enjoyed, not just the training and how he trained me, was a time that we spent when he would come to my house, and he just had his little girl at the time, Mariano, and his wife, Bermudez, and they would come with pots loaded with food. And I would just get a call maybe 5 minutes before telling me, Wade, we're going to come by visit. You got time? And you're not going to tell the Grandmaster no. And I said, yeah, absolutely. He said, I'm going to come by for a couple minutes. I said, okay. Well, as I'm hearing the steps, because I had like 15 steps up to my house at the time, and you would hear not just one set of feet coming up, you'd hear 3 sets or 4 sets. And so then when I would open the door, there he was with his wife and a little one, and they all have these big pots loaded with food. And we would sit around a table and laugh, and my son at the time was maybe 2 or 3 years old. And Angel was actually the first one to show him to shake hands, and he was doing it. He used to always play with my son, and he'd tell him, fight with the master. Oh, my son used to go berserk trying to hit him. And he just parry and play and have fun and laugh. And this was, when I say I really credit Angel with the base that I have, it's not just the base of the art, but it's the base of the art of the life of the art, and how he brought it to where it became personal, it became intimate, it became close. And he had stories with every one of his students, and I'm sure every one of his students had stories about him. The one thing that I know I shared, that's memories that we had, was that time that we would spend with the kids and birthdays in the parks, and he'd come by with all this food, and there's times that he wants to talk about something that's going on, and he'd want to bounce it off me, and I would talk with him, and and he'd share his concerns, and it really made me feel extremely special, not just in his art, but extremely special because he made you feel that way. He came and he asked a question that really concerned him, and he brought it to me to say, what do you think? I really like to know what your opinion is of it. And I would give him the opinion the best I could, because at the time, you got to understand something, when I grew up, I had no dad. And my grandpa did the best he can do raising me and my 2 half-brothers. But there was really no foundation when I grew up. And Angel tried to step in there, not purposely, but he tried to step in there because he knew a lot of the things I was doing out in the streets and the trouble I was getting into. And he was trying to mentor me into being a better dad, to be a better husband, because he would talk to my wife, and she would share some of the struggles, and he would tell me, what do you think you're doing? And he would jam me up. But all this wrapped into an umbrella of martial arts. And when Escrima or any art, when it's done in a manner of intimacy, done in a manner of love, honor, and respect, you receive so much. And it's not just technique and movement, but it's life measures. It's being able to know how to not just follow the right path or the good path, but that these guys that have all this experience, he's pouring into you, he's investing into you. And then when you become an instructor, if you've taken it correctly, then you can invest and you can pour into your students. And it's not watered down nonsense. It's true life, it's true art, it's true movement. Techniques and all these things play a part, but it's what's in here that makes the difference. This is what changes the world. Movement in here means nothing. If there's nothing here, you're like a clanging cymbal. It means absolutely nothing. So I do credit Angel for not just teaching me the way he did and sort of pouring that little bit of hardness in me, but yet that softness and sort of that understanding. But he used to pour into me the respect, because it meant a lot to him. And I don't know if it was because of that time of his life, but it seemed like when I hear stories, he had an edge to him, but he was also very generous and very kind. So I really appreciate that time that I had with him. I'd like to share also some time that I spent with Sunny Umpad. This man was extremely special. He was a different type of an escrimador, different type of a martial artist. He was real quiet, almost hermit-like. He didn't like the attention. He didn't like the high profile. It seems like a lot of, instructors, masters, grandmasters, grand poobahs, everything. I don't mean no disrespect, but we all have names that we put in front of our names, titles and things. These things didn't matter to him. What mattered to him is understanding the art and do it from a good point of view, just like what Angel used to do with me. He was very, very active in sharing with his students. Only do this when you have to. Never do it just to do it. It's just too much problem. It'll create problems for you, your family. He said, the art that I will show you, or that I will help you learn, he said, there's a big dark side to it. He said, and I will give you glimpses of that. He said, so you'll understand to stay on this side of that. He said, because everything I show you, you take one step further, you're into that dark side. And he says, it's very ugly, it's very evil, and it's very mean. He says, but if you're able to stay on this side, it's not even walking the line. He said, it's just understanding the movement, understanding people's, understanding motive, understand body language, understand a lot of things to be able to possibly get out of something before it even creates, before it even starts. He said, but if it ever does, you need this. You need that core. You need that movement, that strength, that speed to be able to come in, to come out. He needs to equate it like a dancer. And so when I would work with him, when I first started, he had told me, he says, I want you to walk the plank. And I go, walk the plank. And he said, yes, I'm going to have you walk, and it would be moral footwork. And so he would have me just step and bend, and my knee would go all the way down. The back of my ankle would come, or my knee would come all the way down to my ankle. So you would be completely dropped, and then you would step and do the same thing. And he used to hang a thing off of my elbow to come down, so it would be right over my foot. So I would be perfectly balanced when I did this. And he had me do this for 3 hours, my first class I was with him. Needless to say, this was on a Tuesday. When I came back Thursday, please excuse my language, but my butt felt like it was this big because it hurt so bad from 3 hours of walking this plank. And you walk back and forth, because he wanted you to understand what it meant to train low. And so once I got over the shock of all that pain, he started working me on different things that he would build in his apartment. And he would have toys that he would play, and he'd have us work our blade and angling and working things around, just because he didn't want you to teach the lesson until you understood the movement. And then once you got that, he would show you the application. And so we had so much fun, because we would do stuff and he would laugh and he would say, I'm going to make you a dancer yet, man. And I said, well, I wish you the best on that, because I can do a little boogie from the 70s, but that was tough doing his type of movement. But he really helped me a lot. And he was very patient. There would be times he'd laugh at me, and I'd say, man, don't be laughing at me. But he laughed. He goes, no, I can see you're really trying. He goes, and you're a bigger guy. He said, but once you get that movement and to be able to dance, you're going to be untouchable. He said, because he used to call it my Cerrado defensive line. He used to come at me with everything he had and throw at me. And he said, I cannot get inside your defensive line. He said, the only problem you have is if I throw 100 times at you and I can't get in, maybe 101 will. And he goes, then it'll finish you. He says, but if I come in and I can't get on you, and then you start moving, you start angling, you start dancing around, now you're cutting corners, now you're opening up holes for yourself. And I really struggled with that at first, that movement, because I was taught to stand there, lock my leg, and fight. That was it. I'm not going to back up from you. And Sunny says it's not a matter of backing up, it's a matter of sucking him in and then angling on him and then taking that shot right there. And he would do a lot of blade work with me. And he would show me the thinness on the blade and how little bit of movement you really need to be extremely effective. And when he started showing me that, he started doing spinning. And man, I tell you, when I spun, I looked like something totally out of control. But in time, it got to where I actually started feeling it, and I knew when to do it. And he would always encourage, there's times when you're going to do something like that, and it's going to work. You just can't just do it to do it, because everything has a rhyme or a reason. But the times that we spent was awesome. The stories that he would share with me, we'd sit down and he'd have his Coke and he'd light up his cigarette and he starts telling me all these stories. And then he would ask me about stories, guys in Stockton. And I asked him one time, I did say this. I said, sir, I said, I've heard that you stole a lot of your material. I go, I don't mean no disrespect now. I said, just take it easy. I said, but that's what I heard. I said, is that true? And he told me, he says, well, everybody knows, man. Everybody knows. He goes, if you're going to steal from the best. And I just sat back and I thought, that's typical Sunny right there. Nothing real, everything's good with him. It didn't matter because whatever he had, you could have. He never held back. He didn't care about that. When he would read your heart and he got to know you, man, the sky's the limit with his teaching with you. If he felt there was something, a little edge on you, that maybe something, you might be doing something wrong with this, he'll find a way for you to not be his student again. Because that's how he was. He just wanted people that had a good heart that would stay away what he called from that evil side and take his art and not just mold it into what he showed you, but build it. Turn it into something that was yours. Make it work. Make it apply. Show your students. He used to always tell me, are you showing your students what I show you? And I said, yeah, I do. And he says, well then, soon, I would like to see my grandchildren. And that caught me a little bit. I go, sir, I don't understand. He said, you're showing them my art, correct? I said, yeah, just like I told you. You'd say, hey, make sure you show them this, make sure you show them that. And I did. And I said, and they're getting it pretty good. And he said, okay. He goes, would you consider yourself my son in the art? I go, absolutely. And then it just dawned on me. And he goes, well, that would make them my grandchildren. And I want to see my grandchildren. Man, again, right there. Just a matter of 5-6 words, change your whole perception of the art, the man, everything he represented. Just right there saying, I want to see my family. I want to see the ones that are coming behind me. I like to see how they're doing. I want to meet them. And when it comes to being special in the eyes of somebody, Sunny made every single one of his students special because everybody had a place in his heart. That's why he poured so much into them. And before he passed away, I received a 2nd-degree black belt that I truly cherish from him. And I'll never forget him. I'd like to share my viewpoints on what they would consider the top 3 out of Stockton. That was Grandmaster Gilbert Tenio, Leo Giron, and Angel Cabales. I knew Gilbert quite a few years ago. Not too long after I met Angel did I meet Gilbert. And I was actually, in fact, yes, that's right. I was doing Goju, and I was doing Escrima as well. And I was training with Angel and everything. And Gilbert Tenio, out of nowhere, showed up at the Goju school. And Sensei Rodney, who went ahead and welcomed him in and told everybody, stop what you're doing. We have a special guest. And he came in and he says, I'd like for everybody to meet. And he introduced them. And he's talking to everybody. And he was very, very formidable. He was not formidable. He was very open and just a nice man. There wasn't a stranger. When Gilbert was around, he was never a stranger. He would talk to everybody. And so he's going talking to everybody, and all of a sudden he goes, oh, the infamous Escrimador. You guys have a master here. And I'm like, oh, no, shh. And he, oh, no, come up here, Wade, come up here. He says, I'll do a little demo with Wade. And whenever Gilbert would do demos, usually the guy that's on the other end is always going to walk out with elbow hurt, wrist hurt, shoulder hurt. Something's hurting because he would get in there and he would lock you and hold you and he would just shake and he said, you see? And he's looking at everybody and you're all there going, yeah, they see. And so he took me out on the floor and he did his thing with me and worked me up a little bit. But everybody loved him. He was an awesome guy. When I had shared earlier about how a few of us, the instructors, had helped Angel open up a school on Harding Way again. We're teaching, and Grandmaster Gilbert Tenio come walking in again, and he comes over, and Angel and him, I think more Angel than anything, but they always just seemed like an edge against each other. I think they respected each other, and they cared about each other, but they were always, looking at each other. And so he came in, and hey, wait, and he comes over and he gives me this firm handshake, and he's talking, and he goes to a student and he tells him, oh, do this like this, and he does the movement, and Angel just, got up. And at the time, Angel had these high heel shoes, you know, these big heels, and he had bell bottoms on, he had his silk shirt on, and he's trying to chase Gilbert, yelling that he's going to kill Gilbert. And Gilbert's just walking around, showing other instructors, talking to students, and as Angel would come around, he'd walk around, he'd talk for a second, and walk around, and Angel's chasing him, and this must have went on for maybe 5-10 minutes. And nobody knew what to do. Angel's furious, he's chasing him down, and Leo says, okay, boys, we'll see you all later. And Gilbert walked out. And Angel was so mad because, you know, Angel was just, Angel felt he was the guy. And some people agree and some do not. I'm not here to dispute that. But I do know that if you're from another school and you're an instructor and you came there, you better show homage and you better go right to him and you leave everybody else alone unless he gives you permission. And Gilbert wasn't one so much to do permission because he was having a good time. And man, when he chased him around, that's a story I think I shared, well, till today. And Leo was probably one of the humblest guys, I think. Always soft-spoken, very nice. Matter of fact, he was a matter-of-fact guy. But he was just a nice guy. They all were. But he had a certain way about him that he encouraged. He would have more students because he encouraged more of the family. Sort of, some guys would call it a gang, but others called it family. And these guys were tight-knit. Leo's students were very tight-knit. And that's how I think they all wanted it, but I think they all wanted it their way. But as far as skill-wise, my gosh, these guys were untouched. In their own way, these guys were the top-notch for everything they had done. And there's big-name guys that are doing movies, that are doing stunts, choreography, different things like that for the movies, that have taken things from these older gentlemen and have used them in the movies. And that's a good thing. I don't think these older gentlemen got the credit that they deserve when it comes to more mainstream. But for the guys that are in the know, the guys that are teaching in their houses, teaching in their backyards, some are teaching in garages, some have little studios, the people that they share the stories with, these older men, that generation, they're living on through the art, through the movement, through the love, and through the family. And these three were very, very pivotal in what Escrima is becoming today. Because you can't say what it is because it's ongoing. It's every day. Once there's a new block showed or a certain block showed or whatever, it's just continually growing. So these guys were very, very pivotal in making Escrima what it's becoming today. Hi, I'm going to show a little bit of the differences of the arts that I've learned. I'm hoping I can remember all of them, but yeah, we're just going to show just a little bit of different flair, a little different style, okay? That's a serrata cross block. That's Bahama. I'll do it again one more time. That's a serrata root. This is the serrata inside. That was the fundo. Let's go number 2. That's typical sweep for serrata. Serrata. De fundo. Take a quick break. Okay. Do it again one more time.